Hello, I'm Chris Athanas. I'm a KMP developer. Tech Sports said they're coming out Tuesday. Close that up. We'll see, right? Today I'm going to continue on discussing some more things about adventure-driven development and contrast it with some videos I see on YouTube. Economics Ethan is one of my favorites. This is a bit of a long one, but this one's about 30 minutes. I'm going to do it at 1.5x. And let's see what's going on.
Many people like to present Google and many other top companies as being this perfect, idyllic place to work, perfect facilities in the office, excellent, smart team members, great people to work with, and in reality, it's not always the case. Now, in some of my previous videos, you've seen me expose maybe Goldman Sachs and some of the leaked documents that came out publicly about their long work hours, unhappy employees. And in this video, we're going to look at an interesting perspective of someone who worked at Google for several years and what is the reality of working at Google versus the fantasy that you're sold through the media.
You have background, you have horsepower. Over time, over my 9 years of being there, people were less and less smart. So at the beginning, when I entered, there were a number of people that I was like, wow, great person to work with, super smart, definitely somebody that I can connect with.
So I think he got into Google when it was still like a silver horde, when it was still all right. They kind of had it on their ball a little bit, hadn't turned into a dungeon grind. He might have got into a lead mine. Lead mine has got a lot of similarities with doing adventure driven. But the vibe was still left over from all the adventure-driven stuff that they've been doing. So he saw it turn from the Silver Horde thing, started turning to Dungeon Grind, and then now it's just a tunnel of fake Agile Doom over there. So that's where this is going.
By the time I left, what had happened was more and more people, it became a much, much, much bigger company. And more people that were hired were not those hyper-intelligent people that were hired, way early on in Google, 2000, 2001, 2005, and so on. Those people, they had very high hiring standards, and those are the people that came in, and they were paying very well, and it was a hot commodity. So those people came to really experience that. But over time, it became, Google is a large corporation. It is a very big corporation. And they made a couple of decisions that sort of diminish the workforce that's there, and one is becoming big. You can't hire your top 1% when you have 400,000 employees. You just can't. So you have to lower the standards. The other
So that's important to firstly consider, right, when it comes to lowering standards. When you transition any major company, any major successful company, and you want to expand it, even if it's your own side business and you have a side hustle, it does become very difficult. Whether it's a startup, tech companies, we see many tech companies, they can become bloated, they have so many people that they're hiring, and the quality of the average employee does tend to decline, right? And you have this dumbing down of employees just to keep those employees who might not be the smartest, just to keep certain processes going. You have a lower quality of employee if things grow. And this is what you've seen with Google and many other tech companies, that after a few years, a few decades, they definitely lose their shine, lose their kind of buzz around them. Now, this is similar to many banks I've worked at, right? If you're new to the channel, I've worked at places like Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and so on. And without referring to any specific bank, just in general, banks tend to hire a lot of people, and they have these really inefficient processes. So many teams need to give approval for one thing. To get one thing done, it goes through 5 different teams to approve it through a system. And then you see things getting more dumber and less efficient effectively, right? And also there's lower standards when you have all this woke ideology, which we'll come on to, which not knocking anyone in specifically, but there are DEI hires, people hired on the basis of their race or their gender for gender equality purposes. You have to have more women in senior management for the sake of it, rather than hiring them on the basis of their ability, to have all these agendas for equality for the sake of it. You have more nepotism and more favoritism, more people just getting their friends to join, more senior employees looking to get their niece or their nephew a job at the company. More and more that type of behavior becomes more ingrained in the corporation, and then it becomes more difficult to manage. And this has impacted Google. They're not isolated, or they're not an exception to the rule here. Now, the truth is, when companies become big, they can't track the local decision making, they don't have any visibility of the team dynamics. And I remember having some honest conversations around Christmas time once with some management in our local smaller offices. So we have offices in London where I primarily worked, but some of the investment banks I worked at, we have offices in Paris and places like that. And when you start talking to them, you start understanding, right? Some of these smaller offices, they get away with not doing much work, but just looking busy, right? Because they have smaller business operations there, right? So they might be doing a couple hours, literally 2 to 3 hours work a day, make it look like it takes 8 hours, but there's no one in super senior management who's kind of monitoring them. So the really senior management might visit them once or twice a year, and they look super busy, like they're doing a lot, but they can really kind of go under the radar there, right? And this happens with the bigger a company gets, regardless of how successful it is. It's so much easier for people to fly under the radar and kind of do less and get away with it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the kind of the people, the destroyer creator types, the creator destroyer types, are both the same type of person. Well, this is the one that complains about stuff, but then there's people that can actually create something to do something about. So there's people who are not satisfied, and then the people who, and they can just identify, and then they always work in hand with the creators who can actually make stuff happen. These people, as you can see, are very small numbers of people who can maintain survive in this environment where it's mostly this, right? And as the companies become successful and bigger, these get squeezed out to the edges and eventually cut off. So that's the kind of people that we're talking about.
So this has impacted Google, and he's going to tell us more about his experience there.
He was talking about
The diversity, equity, inclusion at Google is extreme. And rightly or wrongly, I'm not here to debate DEI, I don't care, but it was a policy, and still is at Google, to hire diversity. To do that, you have to lower your standards in particular places. It could be for a very good reason, there's nothing wrong with that, but basically, over time, what I noticed was that the level of employee coming in went from being these hyper-intelligent, really switched on people, to more and more sort of corporate people, right? They're not overly smart, they're not unintelligent, but they're not these guys, they're not the people that were like, wow. So that was a big influence. That was a big consideration for me, because I like working with very, very smart people. And I remember in 2018 or so, when I was riding my motorcycle into campus in Mountain View, I realized that all of the hyper smart people that I had really respected when coming into Google, they were all gone.
Yeah, they have to leave, right? Because the environment just does not support them for anymore. Google, so all these corporations become consensus, right? They become the consensus. Whoever votes the most is very democratic, right? And anybody can say no, right? So in those environments, the fool needs to hear yes, right? The people he's talking about, the super smart, all these people, it's like, they're really not that smart. They're just going out. They have courage to go out. That's usually what's the thing that's makes them different. Is they're willing to take chances on stuff that's pretty iffy, probably not going to work. A lot of them in these lead mines, right? They're going up the dragon, they get stuck in a lead mine, which is, I'm sure there's something down there. I'm sure it's valuable to somebody, and it's very technical. It's very, but if it's got a value, who knows? But Google can harness those people for a little while and make them go after the big chalice dragon. So those are the people. He's like, oh, they're all going to leave. Well, they can't survive in these environments. They get kicked to the curb because there's people who really know how to play in these environments. There's bosses and bosses and bosses and bosses and ass kissing and needling and wheedling and showing up to all the crazy stuff, doing DI and all that. Everything that's not the work, these people are down for it, right? Because it separates them out, creates little fiefdoms. They can feel like they've got a little thing that they can call their own, right? And the destroyers and creators, we're just not interested in that stuff, man. We're like coming out. We're like, if something really sucks, and we want to like pair up. Sometimes it's the same person, but often it's not. And we want to pair up with the people who can maybe bring some solutions in, right? That's the secret sauce of the adventure driven. Is usually two people. One that's really one that's kind of pushing it more than the other one. And this is a symbol. This is Western. This is a Western mystery tradition. It's a Western. It's sort of the myth, the founding myth, some of the mythos of like the Western tradition, mystical tradition, Western wisdom tradition, whatever you want to call it, spiritual tradition. And this one's pretty central to it. And the people who are into tarot will admit that this is the only card that really counts. This is the Fool card, because as we go through life, we don't know what's ahead of us. And those who are willing to take a leap and a risk are the ones that can change things and make things different, right? And improve stuff. But the preservers are just like, no. Because every time you bring up something new, I'll be the creator, you're actually bringing up the destroyer as well. Because whatever is being created and being maintained and done the current way, you're basically asking them to let go of that. And they're like, what do you mean let go of that? Oh, that stuff's paying my bills. That stuff's paying my rent. Come on now. That stuff's paying for my kids' dentists and private schools and Bentleys. What are you talking about? No. Yes, we're going to do a little bit right here, but we're not going to go all the way over here. You're crazy. That's nuts. Okay, so that's who we're dealing with.
Sergey, Larry were gone. Eric Schmidt was gone. A bunch of other just awesome people. They were all gone on to different things. And because Google was not the same as it was before. And
I mean, this is normal. This is standard. People with autists, so the people who like, oh, this is the place where all the cool people are. It's like, no, it's always moving. It's always in flux. It never stays the same, mostly because these people just cannot tolerate that kind of person around very much. And they will be pushed out eventually one way or another because there's too much. But the preservers know how to create a structure and get it to maintain over time, right? And he's like, oh, I thought it could just be it's Google. It's the magic land or the magic word, the magic place. Like, no, it's being tolerant for these types of people and making environments where they can actually make something happen, which honestly, I don't think can be made permanent. I think just by the nature of these people are, they cannot be like maintained by artificial means. They come up like a bolt of lightning, they flash, and then they're gone. And like if you can get on that ride of the lightning strike coming down the mountain, lightning strike of like the genius that happens, and it's just in a time and a place and a people in an area, then you get lucky. That's what I gotta say about that.
And that's when I started realizing that it was time for me to go as well. People that I was dealing with, they were political. They were much more political than in the past. Still.
So, as you can see, DEI does have a negative impact. I know it's a bit of a controversial topic, and I understand both perspectives there. But what ends up happening, you do have lower standards, because you just like, okay, we need to hit a percentage quota of a particular race or gender in certain roles.
Right. The thing is, it's not going to be just lower standards. It's just, there's not that many people who are willing to dick with all the stuff it actually takes to make things happen and make something new that somebody else hasn't seen before. And there's a bunch of failure that has to be tolerated along the way. And these people are willing to put up with just levels of failure that this group, who eventually takes over these organizations, if it gets good, we just can't tolerate. They just can't tolerate it.
So you're not forcing that, rather than looking for unique people who are good for the job. And typically when you have these changing of the guard at some of these startup companies, and I encourage you all, if you have the opportunity, at least once in your career, get that experience of working at a startup, you could get more responsibility and quickly rise up the ranks there. You could also have the opportunity to really see how a company can grow and maybe get an equity stake in terms of that company. Maybe you can own a percentage of that company. But what ends up happening is...
The thing is, you can't call it a startup though. It's usually someone who just comes up with something new. And I bring the software thing in because that's what I know and that's what I'm going to be digging around in. But there's lots of other areas around that, software tools can be applied to, or just something new can come up out of who knows where. It's not necessarily software related, but this is what I know. This is what I know that I've seen, that I've been involved with, and what it feels like, and what it's like to be inside these things.
The truth about business is it involves a lot of creativity. But when these companies grow, they go from creative to corporate. And, you lose the edge. In order to have a company that is growing and flourishing, you need to have this kind of free energy. And what do I mean by free energy? That's when things like flexible working come in. And when I say flexible working, I don't just mean people who are maybe parents and want to, start the workday late so can they drop their kids off at school. I'm that type of tech environment you see in the tech industry where people can maybe wear the clothes they want to wear, chit-chat about different ideas, go for coffee breaks. Not in the sense that they're lazy, but in the sense they have kind of freedom and creativity to come up with new ideas and look at the business from different perspectives.
And that also takes time. And that takes an awareness of the people in charge that this is how stuff is amazingly created. Now, the companies I worked at, I don't think they actually knew that this is what they're doing intentionally. I don't think I had a word for it, but like the first company was Silicon Beach Software. It was a game company, and the second company I worked at, which was a software company, was doing art software. And before that, I had worked at some at insurance companies and things like that, and I saw how that would run as this massive faceless bureaucracy, and it's just, I don't know. So I just got to see the contrast, and have been involved with different levels of big businesses. After I came back from after I sold my company, which I ran in Adventure Driven, I sold it. Took about 7 years off. Came back, and they were all doing this agile Scrum stuff, and I'm like, what is all this? And there's like, this is the way we do it. This is the better. I'm like, it's agile. It's like, I think you're talking about the stuff that we used to do, but you're doing it all this. What do you do? What's all this Jira tickets and burn down charts and poker points where I don't keep the points? What do you mean I don't get the points?
But when things become corporate and it becomes, okay, you've got to work standard 9 to 5, you've got to do these standard set tasks, it basically creates robots and slaves and encourages that behavior rather than real innovative thinking, because everyone's focused on keeping their job and keeping their particular way of doing things, even if it's inefficient for the company overall.
Correct, because they have been handed something that has been working, that they think will work forever, because this is the preserver mindset, right? Or they're going to milk it for as long as possible, and they've been told that everything in Google's a special place. It's like, no, it's not the place, man. It's not Silicon Valley. It's not special soil. It's a mindset. And people, this is just how things start. Like the computer you're on right now, the windowing environment, that wasn't done by a committee. No, that was done bottom up by people who were actually pushed to the side and said, just leave us alone. We'll just let us come up with something. And they came up with a whole bunch of stuff. Just a laser printer alone was worth $100 billion, $10 billion. Boot up. And the Xerox is like, and they had the whole thing. But the thing is, these big companies, even though they have the money and the funds to run these things, to allow those things to run, they can't actually be involved. That's the thing that's really crazy. So a lot of times these efforts that we find amazing, like the search and all the stuff that Google did, It came from some people who were just like, I'm going to try and do it on my own, see how far I can get with it. And then that's when it's like, and there's 10 million of these guys doing all kinds of things. Every once in a while, one of them hits something. It's like, oh shit. But it's not like they went after it directly. So we're going to go after AI. It's like, dude, that neural network stuff has been around forever. And somebody's like, we're just throw a bunch of compute at it and see what happens. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, this predictive stuff is actually pretty good. Yes, we have to build nuclear power plants to make it run, but...
That's why, say in many cases, it's best to be a lean operation, so you have that freedom, and then you can take a step back and a step forward depending on what's working and what's not working. So this has been my experience when I try to take that innovative, entrepreneurial, dynamic approach, however you want to describe it, at some major investment banks. They don't like it. They have some set, rigid processes, and you have to get on with it. When I was interested in crypto in 2013, over a decade ago, start talking about it with others. They just think it's a scam. Lots of people in middle management, senior management, you would think at a major investment bank would have an interest in it. They're like, oh,
No, sir. No. They picked the winners. After they came across the plate, or they're about to go across the plate, they pick those guys. They're just sure bets, man. The preservers got to keep. They've got a lot of responsibility on their plate. They don't want to be taking chances with something that might be shut down tomorrow. What? Yes, it might go to 10 billion times on X, but it might still go to 0, which they mostly do. Preservers know. Most of the things that these guys are like, oh, that's really neat that was at Google. It's like, yeah, most of that stuff is garbage. Nobody cares about it. Most of that stuff is lead mines, right? Lead mines. Now, every once in a while, you go down and get a silver hoard, but they really want the gold stuff, and they only want to know it after it's already been vetted. And so, this is the environment. If you can't deal, if you're already through this video enough to listen to me ramble about this. If you're the kind of person that's like, I am not looking for the job, so I'm like, this job security is so nice, even though there is no job security. Like, they make it, but the people that I can make something. All I gotta do is the same thing yesterday as I did, same thing tomorrow as I did yesterday. That's all I gotta do is, oh yeah, okay. So, and they want to be in tech. It's like, dude, come on now. But this is how they think, right? This is how they think. So, and they really do think that they can hold on to it forever. So, but the destroyers, like, we just can't deal with this stuff. This is awful. And the people are like, I have an idea, and those two get together. That's when something takes off, and they're not going to be coming from this preserver place because it's like they don't want to hear about your new idea, because you're telling them they have to revamp their operations, and they were handed the operations. They refine the operations, make the operations run faster and more efficient, down to the point where they commoditize it if they would like to do that and be the monopoly on that commodity. That's the goal.
Oh, it's a scam. And the thing is, normies and NPCs and people who support whatever dumb agendas in mainstream society, not just a woke agenda, any agenda, they're going to consider you like a fringe person because you have innovative ideas or you don't know what you're talking about, even though you're the rare few who can think for themselves. But you've got to play the corporate game, which is typically a very rigid kind of prison mind game system, right? That's why then lots of these companies, they're like dinosaurs. They're not going to, a lot of these banks are really...
And that is the competitive advantage that you have as adventure driven, is that these people are literally not going to let you in. You have to kind of force your way in and show them, hey, we're both taking something away and bringing something to life, and there's no need to fear. You're going to make money on it, blah, 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 but they got to have, there's a lot that goes in, and it's not always going to turn out like that. But this is what these guys want to hear. So, because these guys are usually our customers. That's the thing. And they're the ones who are like, room for improvement. We're like, yeah, that's our early adopters of the guys over here. Early improvement, room for improvement. We can sell you on that. But these guys are like, the middle hump, the big hump, the 68% is like, it has to be like 10x proven, got benchmarks, blah, blah, blah. Competitors already in the market space. Like, we can compare the ones to. They need all that stuff. So, but these early adopters over here, do you say you improved it? Because right now it's unacceptable. You got improved it? Oh, okay. And those are your customers.
And struggle as financial innovation continues to pick up because they're not adapting to it. They're just stuck in their rigid ways. They're like dinosaurs that are going extinct. And this is what happens, right? That's why it's so important to have a side hustle so you can focus on those innovative ideas that could change and revolutionize your...
I don't know if you need a side hustle, but you need to get your eyes open and see the inefficiencies are all around and see where you might be like, hey, I think I might be able to get something going there. And I know a guy or two or can maybe figure it out on my own or willing to go down that rabbit hole.
Industry, or work with a smart startup where you get that flexibility, where you get the ability to work for a smaller finance or tech company, and then you can work the way you want to work, manage your team the way you want to manage it in a very efficient way, and not get caught up in these kind of corporate rigid processes that waste your time and energy. Right. And it's another key point here is when management does change, you may want to think about whether you want to change, and you want to change because the culture could change dramatically. You could go from a manager who's kind of laid back and chill to a serious manager, or someone who's making mistakes, they're kind of incompetent for their role, they've been promoted above their level of competence. You could have a situation where you can kind of work on your own type of time frame, and then all of a sudden they want you to complete timesheets about what work you've done at every single hour.
Yeah, the minute the timesheets come out, these guys, they love the timesheets because the next thing is you're about to get cut.
How long everything takes. So just bear in mind, senior management changes, you might think, oh, that's 10 levels above me in the corporate chain. It's not going to impact me. And then before you know it, maybe they're changing other managements, they're changing other processes. So look out for that when that change does happen. It can make life really difficult for you, and you may need to leave. So bear that in mind.
Yeah.
And like I say, when those management do changes, the management can hire their friends to be the new manager.
When you're in that and you get cut, you realize, oh, which level is that? Was it a tunnel fake altitude? Was it a tar pit of seemingly good ideas? Was it a direct competition lava lake? Was it a dungeon grind? Was I in a silver horde? Was I in a lead mine? And after a few of these, you kind of have to go through a few. It seems like what people have to do a few of them. They have to go in here for a little while. And they go, oh shit, there's got to be a different way. And then sometimes usually organically on their own, because they start these things on their own. And just by the nature of how these things are, you got to be courageous and creative. You're going up here. You're going after the dragon. You're going looking for the cave entrance. Looking for a peek in. Are there any customers in here? And then it's like, oh, if you can solve this problem, I'll give you my golden cup. But you got to solve my problem the way I want it to be solved, right? You have to solve the problem. So this guy's like, yeah, that exceeds my expectations from what I currently have, which is room for improvements, right? You have to make this guy happy. So he doesn't go away. Just because we're adventure driven doesn't mean we have to not deal with that guy. We still have to deal with them.
Manager of your team, and they might not like you and things like that. So it's very important to pay attention to those type of social dynamics that could change, even if you think it doesn't impact you directly. Likely a lot of it will.
And to be fair, all of those people coming in are incentivized to continue the mystique that Google hires the smartest, most amazing people, because that reflects on them. They say, oh, I'm a Googler. This is, we only hire the best. It wasn't true. It's not true today. You just can't with that kind of level of hiring that Google was doing. The people that were coming in that were a bit less than before, they continued the mystique. They continued this narrative that, wow, Google only hires the best and the top. And of course, we're one of them, right? We are in that group.
So a quick point there, right? So these companies, they're relying on the mystique of the past, whether it's, I don't want to name or attack any specific companies, but,
the preserver has the one true religion. He's got the one true religion. There's one way we've done it. We are the best. Google soil. You are on the soil. That means you passed to the gate of Valhalla. Now you're at the place where all truth is bestowed upon everyone. And just by the nature of you being here, you are that. So they really want to have the identity of the creator destroyer. They really want to own that. But they don't want to go outside their comfort zone. They don't want to think too much. They don't want to take too much risk. But they're going to get the brand. You better believe it, because they acquired it, right? We took the brand. We own the brand. It's like, oh, you want brand? I'll give you brand. It's like, oh, I'll give you this. I'll show you how much better it is. And then it's like, this guy's like, I'll just give you the brand. I'm like, we have the brand. It's like, that's not it. It's these guys over here doing their little dance of destruction creation, which is super scary and risky as hell and fraught with danger.
Major universities like London School of Economics or Harvard or Yale, major investment banks like Goldman Sachs, countries like UK, US, they're relying on their previous reputation when they could maintain that mystique, right? And the mystique was justified. Google, for example, here, right? But now people are seeing through those lies, and they really can't, they're relying on a historical perception of themselves that doesn't apply anymore. And that's when you've got to pay attention to, shifting your company's tone, right? If the company changes from a real, a more open and flexible workplace environment to an environment where everything becomes corporate drivel, corporate wording, they're stifling innovation, they have no interest in crypto, for example, as I mentioned in my previous experience at some investment banks, it really shows these companies are out of touch with what's going on, right? And you see this all the time in...
and that's good. To see that up close. The thing is, if you haven't been in these environments, you think it's, I'm going to be a Googler, we're going to be doing amazing tech. No, you're not. You're going to change a button from light blue to a little bit darker blue. We just need a couple shades darker, because that really, our A/B testing automated system said that we need this little bit darker shade this year. And that's what you'll be doing.
like the sales and trading floor that I've worked on, and there's lots of people who are posing and giving the impression of being the smart guy, but they don't know what they're talking about. They might have a tailored suit and present themselves well, but there's a lack of substance there, and you see this time and time again in corporate. And that's when you can have people who play the entire corporate persona, the productivity theater in the office. They're dressed right, they say the right things, but they are not that good at the job, and they make lots of mistakes, and they could be kind of dumb, but this gets overlooked because they are playing the persona you need to play in the office. And that's what it looks like has happened to Google over time.
Since like 2005 at Google, what is Google known for? They're all bought. All of them are bought from other companies and integrated into the Google sphere.
Yeah, the other companies that went and did the adventure-driven shit, and they made it through the gauntlet up to the cave opening, and they saw Google's like, oh, you must do it best, this better than else. Like, oh yeah, okay, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that. And you get paid as well, and we're out. We're out, we're done, we're good, we're out of here. Or they go off and do something else. Attack another dragon, look for another cave entrance, go after another mountain, someplace else. And the people at Google are like, oh, we don't mind doing that. We'll do your silver hoard. We'll do your lead mine. Well, it's not really that. It's more like a silver hoard. So they gave part of the funding out of this golden hoard just to keep it going. And you get it. It's like, you understand.
So YouTube is an example. It was bought. Android was bought. Google Maps was bought. The Google Docs and the whole workspace and stuff, that was bought. Right. So DoubleClick was bought for ads. All kinds of exchanges, all kinds of things. Basically, anything that's been launched besides AdWords, search, and Gmail, which is was a 20% product. Everything else was bought. As a technical guy, as a product manager, being able to launch things that are innovative and change, the billion or 6 billion users that Google has, that's the draw, right? That's to be able to launch products that really touch a lot of people and really matter. You don't have that opportunity at Google.
Isn't that interesting? People think they're going to go there going, oh, I'm going to launch my product on billions of people. Yeah, well, that's the marketing brochure. That's to get you to grind on leak code. So then when you get in there and all you're doing is these tiny little bug problems that you're not pissed off because you think that you really think you've arrived because you're at Google and you're at the Google campus and you're eating lunches and you're staying there till midnight and grinding out all this stuff. And you really think that's it. And that's the thing that's really sad is like people don't know about adventure driven because I'm just made it up a couple weeks ago. I'm like reminding, it's like, and then people's like, is this lean? No, lean is like, how can I do things with nothing? It's like, that's part of it. Yes. But it's mostly this attitude of like, hey, maybe what can I do? And it may not work. How's that? It may not work. Oh, well, I'm gonna make sure it works. Like, it's probably not gonna work. But the thing is, you're going to find out on the way up there when you're trying stuff, when you're trying your own stuff, right here, when you're trying this going up here the mountain, that's where the happiness is. This is when you start doing those tutorials. You're like in personal projects, like, hey, this is really cool. I really can make some neat stuff. Oh, you can make money with this too, and then boop, you're in the total fake agile doom, or you're a tar pit. It's a good idea, or you end up in a silver hoard. It's very rare out the gate you make a end run to this. It's rare. It happens. People do talk about it. I don't know how I know. I've showcased some people that have done it that I know did it for sure. Some people like Zuckerberg, I'm not really sure if he really. I mean, there's lore, but I don't know if he's actually did it. Because it seems like he kind of maybe did. I don't know. It's just unclear. But there's other ones that's more clear to me that they actually did do this run up the mountain, and the failures are all around them. They refer to the people that didn't quite make it and had really terrible ideas and half-cocked things and were going for it anyway. And that we knew most of those people were nothing's going to happen with their stuff. There's just garbage or just half-cocked or doesn't make sense. It's like, who is this for? Like, we knew that, but we were always like, oh shit, that's awesome. Like, oh yeah. So that's why like you got to make sure if you're going to like do adventure-driven stuff that you actually have real customers, because your people in your like peer group will, yes, that's like a sign that you're coming onto something, but it's not your end. It's not your end. That's not a real solid, truthful signal. So let's keep going.
Even no matter how high you get, the risk for Google of launching a bad product is too high. You can't come up with some innovative idea and be like, I think we should do this. They have very, very, very patience and ability to products that might fail. So a couple examples of this. Google Glass is a very good example where Google Glass is a good product. I mean, that is it. Just to remind you, it's sort of with a display and a camera right here, and it will show you things that are on your phone and the camera. And the idea is that you could build this platform out where it gives you information about what you're seeing and so on. That's cool. That is something.
So a key phrase he used here is reputational risk. Now, some companies
it was a good demo. I'll give them that. It was a good demo. I played around with it, whatever, but it was at least 10 years off from what they said could be. It was still running on Android. It was kind of hacky wacky. But how it did the heads up display, yeah, we're gonna have those for sure, and then at some point soon, if not already. But like they try and put everything on there, and we just need to have some sort of low power system. But like, yeah, so that's another example of the creator destroyer types that will just try stuff that's not quite ready yet, and that's totally legit and totally fine.
They call it franchise risk. And it's essentially that sometimes innovation might be good, new ideas, new approaches to things could be good, but these major corporations, they become so stifled about protecting their reputation. And I understand they don't want a big scandal, so they don't want to make any type of big bad business moves, they don't want to send out a message there because that could really impact their reputation, but it really holds them back, right? And this is really a red flag for layoffs when a lot of companies, they just focus on doing things the same way, and then they become bloated, and then they have to fire people because they have to keep things efficient without really innovating. They're just acquiring new corporations, new smaller tech companies in the case of Google to kind of incorporate them into Google's offering without really innovating there. And that's when you have duplication of roles and many people who, like I say, get laid off because things turn more corporate than creative. Now, when I think whether this is the downfall of Google, I think this is really a reflection of just big Western companies that Google, in my opinion, is like an extension of the US deep state and, surveillance of all people's searches and how they use their computer and things like that. I'm sure there's a lot of back-end collaboration between Google and three-letter agencies there in America. So Google, Disney pushes a woke agenda, many scandals about Disney in the last few years too, right? And just like big banks, they're too big to fail, right? And I know that's going to sound like a conspiracy theory in the sense that, is the US government backing all major US investment banks? Yes. Well, clearly they are because they're considered too big to fail.
Obviously.
And they get
plunge protection team, come on.
They get bailouts from the US government, right? Is Google and Disney too big to fail? I would argue that they push certain agendas that serve the interest of the US deep state, however you want to label them, corporate agenda,
it's all the same. Yeah, they're all mixed together.
Hollywood agenda, things like that. So that's why you have these inefficient processes. On the surface, there's one small cog in a machine, one small employee might not make sense to you, but in the grand scheme of things, when you start looking at the big picture, like why are they operating in an inefficient way? Why aren't they focused on innovation? It's probably because there's some type of narrative piece of the puzzle I'm missing there, which would explain why they would hire DEI hires over competent hires, or focus less on innovation and more on surveillance, things like that.
It's because their customers are not who they say their customers. The customers, we are the raw material that they're using, that they're selling to another customer, like that pushes the DEI and does the corporate finance, and you can never go bankrupt. Your company can never go out of business. As long as you're the customers, who they are the real customers, not you guys. Come on. No, the customers, they're the real customers. As long as you keep them happy, you'll be forever in business. Okay.
Like that.
About launching things. So you end up either working on a project that gets canceled, like if you're working on Stadia or Glass, or dozens of projects that, people work on and then get to launch and they're like, nope. Or you're just, you make proposal after proposal and everybody says no. And that leads to, so that's the second issue, is the ability to launch and be innovative at Google. It doesn't exist. It's working on the search algorithm a bit, and you make millions of dollars by doing that for the company, but it's not the most interesting work.
Will you make millions of dollars, or just a few $100,000? I don't know if you make millions working on search algorithm. Are they really even doing that anymore?
So it's quite important for anyone who's going into a corporate role, Google or any other ones, right? Things can be quite demotivating because you can work very hard on a project or something, and then it fails, or they stop it, or they put it on hold for a year, and then other people get to take the credit of the work you're doing.
Yeah, that's a terrible thing, by the way. If you've ever worked on projects and you're about to ship it and they cancel it, you've done all this work and nobody gets to see it. Oh, that's a horrible feeling.
I remember doing a lot of detailed analysis around risk management for sales and trading division around commodities and trading real commodities, physical commodities, or trading the derivative of these commodities. And then all of a sudden, a female team member who I hadn't even met, who was off on sick leave for long time periods, who was out on maternity leave for a long time period, she kind of came back and they wanted her to kind of do that role. But I'd already written the report and it was about to go to senior management, and they just got her to look over it, made some small edits, like making it a bit shorter, and then her name got put on the top of it, like she was someone who wrote the entire report.
Very common. This is very common in corporate environments, and kind of accepted as normal. And like, well, is that how you think it's gonna happen? How the thing you think you just keep doing that to people? You think you're gonna keep doing that to creative destroyer types? They're just gonna stick around. It's like, why did everybody leave? Why did everybody go? All my friends left. It's like, dude, the writing's on the wall. The party's over. Time to wrap it up. The parents are home, and now it's just all the stuff you don't like about corporations because they all do the same thing. They have to. It's the same person. It's these people. They want to maintain what they have. They're not trying to make the world bigger. They already captured the world, so now they just need to hold on to it. That's really what it's about.
But this is what I mean about, unfortunately, when you're in big corporations, your ownership ability of ownership of the work you do, of the credit you get, of the pay and bonus and how that's justified, so much of it is out of your control, right? And it becomes kind of demotivating. That's why, you know, if you're working for a major tech company and you find that and you feel that way, or a major finance company, consider about building up some more years of experience, and then consider a smaller company, maybe a startup, where you will have a bit more exposure and ownership of all the work you do. Now, these big companies, they're stuck on small
adventure driven. You know, like eventually people who just get sick and can't just deal with these environments, who are creator destroyer types, eventually they find their way into some adventure driven stuff. Some way, somehow they'll take a pay cut or whatever, and they'll be in the adventure driven stuff just because that's just the nature of beats. And every once in a while, those guys come up with something that's like blows everyone's socks off. But most of the time they don't. They're happy, right? They're in there dancing with the dragon, man. They're like messing with their thing. That's what WAS was. WAS is all about that. It's like, how can I reduce the diode count? It's like, that's not the most important thing, but your skills are very useful right about now. In the future, not so much. But at the moment when that was happening, they needed a WAS because it was way too expensive. The microcomputer revolution wouldn't have started without WAS. I need to reduce the diode count. I don't know. But she just knew you memorized all the chipsets and everything at the time, which is totally doable. And he'd been messing with transistors since I was a kid, so he's like useful at that moment. And then the adventure was over for him. He's like, I think I'm good. I want to still be involved with this crazy thing somehow. That's why he still gets $50 a week, whatever. But like, you don't want to do with all this corporate stuff. This is so boring. Like, ugh. No, he wants to go down there and see what's available. What can adventures going on? And then he realized, teaching. So he got into teaching, and it's like, oh yeah, you can teach a bunch of fools. You don't have to be the only fool. You can teach a bunch of fools to go up and fool things.
Improvements to impress management and not big game changer decisions, right? And that's why people say, you're a cog in a machine when you're doing a job. You just got to keep your manager happy, or the phrase, I pretend to work and my manager pretends to pay me. It just shows you how pointless a lot of this kind of environment is. And that's why Google, which we think wouldn't be like that based on its kind of positive reputation of being a good workplace environment, is an interesting case study here. So let's see a bit more about the consensus culture of Google.
Google is a consensus culture. And that means that everybody has to say not no for something to happen. And that means anybody can come and say no, and there's no consensus, and then it gets stuck. So people do this, and they can show influence and power by saying no to whatever it is. And I have dozens of examples of this. But when you have a consensus culture, nobody can say yes. Nobody can stand and say, we're going to do this, and we're just going to go through.
That's why you need to have the destroyer creator, because the destroyer can say yes or no, right? Yes, we're not doing this, we're doing this. And the creator says there's 1,000 directions to go in. That's why he has multiple faces. He's got 1,000 directions to go in, but the destroyer will set the tone of where we're going next, right? And from that process, something new will be created. But in the culture of Google, it's like they all get like this, like, the Google did it, they're doing it wrong. It's like, no, they all do this. They have to, and that's their weak point, right? Is that they will not move. They will not move because they can't. They can't. They can move a tiny little sliver bit, but they can't move as fast as these guys are going now.
With this and nope. Everybody has to agree that this is a good idea. Everybody has to agree that this is the right thing. So to get anything done, and really anything in sales or engineering or whatever, you have to go around and get everybody to not say no. You have to make sure everybody does not say no. Otherwise, you're sunk. And
see. When you're doing the adventure-driven stuff with Destroyer Creator, you just need to get one of these guys or a couple of these guys to agree. I'm like, are you sure it'll work better than things? Like, yes, it'll work way better. Like, well, I did something that's room for improvement or it's unacceptable. You say it'll go better than what I have now. It's like, oh yeah, it'll do it. Yeah. So instead of having a bunch of no's and trying to get, you have to get all yeses. And no no's, you only need a couple yeses. That's why adventure-driven stuff is you don't need to have as much buy-in in the beginning for something, so you can see some success. You don't have to. It'll actually move. You have a way to move through this thing, right? That's the idea. And you have to separate from these people. They can't be around, unfortunately. With ADD, they're the customer, but they can't be around in the creation. The destruction creation process, they can't be around it because they're coming. Don't worry, but they can't be part of the initial process. It just doesn't work.
And that's a tiring process. It's frustrating because you're people of this and that, and they oftentimes people have no idea about what you're really doing and the details and so on. And you give a presentation, and their value that they can add is to say no, or to ask some questions that send you off into a month's work of nonsense. I've seen this multiple times. That's frustrating.
So that's quite interesting here about consensus culture. You think at Google, at some of these big major banks too, major tech companies, they would want people to speak up and really push for innovation. Now, Google, after they had a massive scandal actually where an employee was talking about how this diversity and equality thing was not working out and creating inefficient workplace environments and effectively leading to censorship and things like that. There was a famous open letter that was written by a Google employee called James Damore. You can look that up. And Google all of a sudden started really clamping down on employees' freedom of discussing different topics, really focusing on innovation, and became a consensus culture, which is no different from major investment.
I saw the
process
same
approval.
stuff.
I've worked at some companies where we have a new business initiative, and they have a new process approval process where you'd have the consultation of the business who comes up with the idea typically, then operations, finance, audit, risk, compliance, management divisions who all discuss how can we move forward and make money with this new business initiative. And it becomes dragged down in so much bureaucracy and people saying, no, we can't do this. No, we have this long, cumbersome process we have to introduce for it. It becomes so ridiculous just to innovate in the business, right? And I think this is what I mean when companies have these they're not operating in a lean way. They're not really focused on growing and changing. And you see this kind of stagnation, this stiflingness across Western civilization right now, right? Not just in Google or major investment banks. There's no real push to innovate. It's about maintaining the current power structure, the current.
Well, they're not going to. It's not going to come from them ever. They can't. It never has. Now they put on the marketing brochures and everything like that. They promote to the preservers that are on the edge here, that aren't quite destroyer creator types. They're like on the edge to bring them in. They advertise like, yes, it's a risk-free environment where you can do adventure-driven development. It's like, no, they don't. Like, that's how it started. True, that's how they started long ago, back before the dinosaurs roamed the planet. This is how it started, but they don't know how it. They don't know how to make that happen again. They don't even. They can't. How would they? There's not enough of them. It's like, dude, you're out here the tiny fringes here. This is big. There's lots of people here. This is a tiny bunch of people here. So wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great to have us like, I don't know. You kind of need these people to keep things stable. Once you have something going, if you have too many destroyer creator types running around, it's too destructive.
Current matrix, if you want to call it that, the current system of control rather than really pushing things forward. Because if you push things forward and even have some innovative business ideas, it's going to somehow undermine the current power structure. So that's really the backstory between a lot of these corporate mind games you'd see here. And what ends up happening is, particularly at the more junior level, this is something to look out for. You might end up doing a lot of work, and then someone quite senior than you, who you don't typically know, they've been having discussions on that particular project, business initiative, whatever it is, and then you've done a ton of work, and then all of a sudden they just decide to cut it short and throw the project in the trash can, right, and throw away that particular opportunity. That's why I recommend what you should do if you're more junior, middle level of management or junior, is work things at a slow pace, understand the pace of the company, and work at that pace, because there's no point rushing ahead and doing a whole bunch of analysis and report writing and things like that, only for it to be cancelled or someone else to take the credit. Really understand what's going on as much as you can, because there's no point doing a whole bunch of extra work and all of a sudden things are cancelled without you being involved in that discussion in any way, shape or form.
The first time this happens, you're not going to know, right? The first time you do these one of the things, it's gonna sneak up on you, and it's gonna bite you in the ass. But the first time, people don't know what it is usually, right? I haven't been at these companies. I've been at these companies, and some people see it coming because they've been in these environments before, but most people don't. And after a few times, you just don't. The people who have been through it, like, they don't stick around. They go do something else. They either go into the consulting realm, or they go to do their own adventure-driven thing, or they just go do something else. Because, man, you can only take some of that stuff emotionally so many times.
What's interesting about a lot of these consensus cultures is many people of different divisions, as he says, they just want to exercise their power. So you have a lot of people who think, oh, they're senior, they're qualified, they know what they're talking about. There's lots of guessing and pointless questions in these group committee meetings, and lots of people bluffing about what they know and what they don't know about certain topics, just to push for extra research, just to delay processes, just to flex their power, just to get a bit more leverage or maybe more credit for a particular project. That's the reality of the corporate world, and that's Google kind of ended up becoming, rather than becoming a creative place to work.
Well, the thing is, it can't, Ethan. It can't be a creative place the whole time. It just doesn't work that way. These environments, I'm pretty convinced, like, now that I've been talking about this stuff, this adventure-driven stuff, I think that just has a time limit on it. And everyone involved kind of knows that. and they kind of want to keep like the places I've been at. We tried to keep it going as long as it could, but there comes a moment when it just doesn't. You can't keep going. You can't. It doesn't happen anymore. It's over, and you're sad when it happens, and you kind of let it go, and then you hope to see it again somewhere else, and you keep your eyes peeled for it, right? So I got 2 in a row. I got lucky. With 2 in a row on these, but since that's happened, it's only been the projects I've been in charge of that I've done the adventure driven stuff, but everything else has been this Tunnels of Fake Agile Doom or Dungeon Grind or the tar pits of seemingly good ideas, direct competition. It's been all this stuff here. Yeah.
And to innovate and really change the world and make a lot of money.
Woo! It's very political. Right? Not the most political that I've seen in any organization, as I mentioned, but that's a big one. I don't like politics. I like performance. I like when people are super smart and they know what they're doing and they're all looking to the company and push it forward and be innovative and take risks and so on. Google's not the place.
He's here with the destroyer creator types. He's probably never heard this my breakdown on these things. He's never probably thought about it this way. But the thing is, these environments the creative environments just don't last very long, and there's not going to be that many people who are going to be into it, and then they move. They go someplace else, and you either follow them or don't. I don't know. Like, what do you say? They can't stick around. They gotta go, man. They get pushed out. You understand? They get pushed out.
If you like, Google is not the place for you. It's 20 years ago it used to be. Today it's not.
Great point there. And I said there about what you think Google would be innovative, entrepreneurial, and things like that. It's really not about that. It's about office politics and playing office politics the same way as any other major corporation, rather than performance. So just be aware of that, and that's the purpose of this video. Really help you understand how Google's inner working actually is. Right? Same in banking, same in many other top type of corporate roles.
All the corporations are like this.
It is very, very. It's not left leaning. It's not kind of left of center. It is very, very, say almost militaristically liberal. So there are there's this whole idea that you can bring your whole self.
That's the preserver cult that took over, who have found out by the senior manager or wherever that they know that the customer isn't really you or me who are using their free products. Okay, no, it's the governments and the NSA and the security agencies, intelligence agencies. Those are the real clients, real customers, and they want certain things to be pushed from their systems, from the government systems. Whoever's in charge of that wheels of power, they push it down because they're getting the money from those guys. They're not getting from me and you. They're getting it from Wall Street. Come on, this is not rocket science.
To Google, and they made a big stink about it, and I'm fully supportive of that. And I think everybody should bring their whole self to work. I think that's wonderful, but not if you have any sort of conservative views. It's all about really what they mean is the LGBTQ plus community can bring their whole self to work. I'm fine with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But if anybody comes in and has ideas that are more conservative, they get creamed. And there's a famous.
Well, they should, because the people in power who are actually paying their checks and they see who moves up and they talk. It's not like people don't see. The engineers are last to know this stuff, right? Because they're so autistic and we don't really think about things like this. We're not up in these hierarchies and these things. There's lots of people here, man. They all got personal little connections and they're connected out to bigger stuff that we're not interested in because we don't want to do that stuff. I know it sucks. I know it's really hard for people that are that's why it's adventure driven is the place for us. We cannot be in these environments because this is what they always turn into. Now, if it wasn't a left-leaning LGBT whatever, it would be the right-leaning blah 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 blah, the fascist Nazi government, whatever the fuck you want to think it is. It's always going to be that. It's not that Google, they want LGBT, gay, whatever. No, they're just following what the people that pay them the money. They get the money. They don't. Come on, man. This is not rocket science. So it's and that's whoever's in charge, right? Whoever's in charge here, these are the people that go. This is not complex. I know it's sucks to for autists like me and him, they go, oh, can't they just keep it creative and just try new things? No, this is a money-making operation. This is I don't know if it's even money-making. It's like a psychological operation, some sort of mass intelligence operation. And they don't really seem to really care about the money. They're giving their stuff away for free. We give them all the information about all the things we're doing. It's that's what it is. Okay, so that's why it's oh, but they're tech, and they're all no, not really. No, that's not what they're doing. I know that's on the marketing brochure, and that's on their ad, and we're super high tech. It's that's not really what they are. I know it's like he's on the inside. He's like, why they gave it up? So they didn't give it up. They bought in. They got it. It's working right the way they want. It's working perfectly.
Essay that I think James Damore wrote sometime in like 2016, 2014 or so, and about how if we want female engineers coming into Google and there are not enough that are going to schools and qualified, then we have to lower the standards to bring them in. The logic is sound, but he got fired like that. Now, rather than having the debate, which at Google I can understand, you don't want to have that debate. It is a policy, and you follow it or you don't. But at that time, Google had the reputation that everybody can have discussions internally. So we had meme boards where you put, make memes about what's going on and so on. There was discussion boards about all kinds of topics.
Oh yeah, it's discuss whatever you like, everyone. Oh no, this won't be recorded and held against you. Oh no, we would never stoop so low as to get rid of people who don't align with us. We would never track any of that stuff on our inclusive boards that were all message boards for internal use. Do you have any discussions you'd like to be recorded for management to peruse later? No? You don't want to have more discussions about workplace organizing? It's silly. It's the Asperger's, man. If we get locked into like thinking that things one way, even though everything around us, even being working there, is telling us, no, you've been psyop. You think that's one thing, but it's really something else. But until you figure it out, we're going to give you some more tickets. We're going to give you some more JIRA tickets to deliver on until you figure out that what you're dealing with is not what you think it is.
And people could really, for the beginning, really discuss things that were controversial, and that was the culture there. At the James Damore incident, that essay that he wrote, the culture was shifting in a huge way from being a discussion that you really could discuss all kinds of issues, because that's how we get to the truth. And if there are issues that are uncomfortable, you can discuss them on the boards. At that moment, it shifted. At that moment, everybody knew. There was a shudder of like, whoa, you cannot discuss these things anymore. And there used to be
you thought you could want to. Maybe that should be a lesson for everyone who's watched this far. Anybody that anything at work will and can and will be used against you. You better believe it. So that's why, like, anyone that's sensitive and has a little bit outside the box, a little bit offensive, like me, a little bit autistic, a little bit just kind of wants to like explore this area, you cannot be in these big corporate environments. Or just, if you're gonna be in there, hold your breath, hold your nose, do your tickets, see all the inefficiencies, keep your eyes open, and eventually try and do a run and look for the cave entrance. I don't know what else to tell you. That's you. People that are complaining like, oh, I can't believe they took the message boards internally, which we discussed everything openly. Oh yeah, these people love that, by the way. Destruction. But these all they see is the destruction. They don't see the creation, just the destruction. Like, we have to stop these people immediately. We have to stop this guy. How do we get rid of him without him knowing that we're trying to get rid of him?
An open environment at TGIF where you could go and talk to Larry.
So essentially what he's explaining here, they managed to restrict freedom of speech effectively at the company. And you should understand we do live in a two-tier society, regardless of what people tell you. As I mentioned in some of my videos, there's a requirement for men to be labeled as toxic masculinity and to get the whole girl power narrative. Men have to pander to women. Straight people have to pander to the rainbow flag community. People who are right-wing have to pander to the left-wing. It's a two-tier society. If you're conservative, masculine, depending on the race.
Right, and I just want to point out again, if the left didn't have to be, it wasn't in charge right now, it was the right, it'd be similar shit. Right? It'd be similar shit. It's just from the other side. So this is the game we're playing. All these environments, all these corporation environments, because the whole financialization of the economy, right? They're all going to get politicized. So if you don't like this, you can't be in there for very long, right? Or if you have to be in there, realize this is the road you're in, right? And if you don't like it, you don't want to get through, you want to slog through here. Good luck, man. I wish you luck. But the thing is, there's lots of things you can find out about how things are handled while you're in these environments, where you can do your own adventure-driven stuff and go compete with them. That's really
depending on the propaganda of that year. If you're white, there might be discrimination against you, and this is what happens, right? When you have these, like I say, lowering of standards, men fired for saying that DEI doesn't work too well. This censorship, authoritarian culture is just so embedded within major corporations now. I mean, people can't even pretend that there is a bias like that. If you are in the UK, for example, and you're critical of migration, you think there's too many, hundreds of thousands of millions of people coming across the border without, being vetted correctly. If you criticize mass migration in the US too, you get labeled as far right. There's all these type of terminologies for you. So it really is like, there's no real solution there, right? If you're a man in corporate environments, you're going to have to deal with intense censorship and authoritarian culture. Now, this really raises the question, what is the future long term, right? Because you think, oh, well, if you want to work at one company, it'd probably be Google or something like Google, where you have that flexibility, you can be a bit more free in terms of how you work there. That's what we always hear about these tech companies. You know, you can...
It was like that. Early on, yes, it was like that. It was like that right here. When Google was running this, was doing this stuff, and when they were still kind of early on doing government contract stuff, it was kind of into this is doing government stuff, which is all these same damn thing. So could you divorce? Could you do this for us? 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 And the technology, and they acquired all these companies, and they get, hey, that guy's pretty smart. He'll go over here and do this one. He'll do this bug hunt for us. There's been a lot of stuff, and they go, that's right. And the guys in here like, hey, wait a second, we're not having any fun anymore. I'm gonna go off and try something else, and that's why they leave. That's why they're like, oh, you worked at Google, but yeah, but what were you doing at Google? Were you punching tickets down here in the dungeon grind, or were you like going after it with a company that got acquired by the Googles, who Google will never figure out how to make it because they can't?
Dress smart casual, you can wear clothes like I'm wearing now, you can maybe chit chat about different ideas. It's not super just working through rigid processes every day, but that's not what happens over the long term when it comes to major corporations. So my advice kind of to everyone out there, if you're a man particularly, is really think carefully about how to navigate through the corporate environment, and this is something I can help you with through my career advice. There's a link in the description. And then over time, you know, building skills, you can operate your own business on a freelance basis, collaborating with others. And I think that the long-term future is you have these major corporations that have a lot of power, of course, as I say, backed by the deep state or whichever other shadow government entity there are, and they have their power structure. They operate a monopoly or an oligopoly, and they collaborate, these essentially run a cartel in each industry. You see it with grocery stores, you see it with major investment banks, you see it with tech industry. There's the top FANG tech companies. They basically operate like a cartel, and you know, anytime there's a new innovative company that coming up, they sell to Google and they make millions or significant amount of money, and these people typically retire. Those smart people who are outside the system. Now I think so on one hand you're going to have these major big dinosaurs that cling on to their power, and on the other hand you're going to have people who maybe develop skills and they decide to be independent, maybe as a freelancer, maybe they're a freelance accountant and they have their few clients and they build up their own kind of following. And you're going to have people who develop specific skills because they want to drop out of corporate. So for example, imagine you have 5 men who drop out of corporate jobs. You have one man who is a highly skilled accountant, another one who's good at law, someone who's good at sales and marketing, and then maybe they have some contacts abroad in the Philippines, in India, in various other locations, Poland, places like that, and they hire them as virtual assistants. And maybe they're all running their own thing, their own legal practice, their own accounting practice, but then they decide to combine together on a business idea. People all over the globe, maybe say 5 to 10 people who work together in some way or form, and they run their own hyper efficient business. It could be a marketing agency. I'm sure many people of you have seen over the last.
There are lots and lots of businesses, and his staffing is not what I would consider being the staffing, but for his ideas of things that he's doing, the adventures that he's talking about going on, yeah, you can do it like that. But the adventures I'm talking about are a little different. So, and I cover that in some of the Micro Monopoly videos, but I think you get the idea. And let me go back here to my main view. Yeah, so it's adventure driven. It's mostly an attitude of like not wanting to deal with these corporate environments and wanting an alternative and just being realistic about what's going on, what's expected, right? If you go adventure driven, you may not succeed, right? That's the whole thing. It's like, but I think there might be something there. It's like, okay, well then go for it, man. Like try and try and figure out what you can do with it, and don't get stuck in planning, try and deliver stuff. Try and find the customer as soon as possible, and start delivering stuff to them before you got a website, before you do your business plan, before you write any code. Find someone that's got a problem, and see if you can be a part of that solution. That's really what it's about. All right, I'm Chris Athanas. Give me a like and subscribe. Give me a comment, and I'll talk to you soon.